the different editors that I mentioned, I went out and just started testing them. And in order to test them, I used two of the bots that I'm currently working on a little bit because they're very different from each other. Lucy, she's based in Program E, and the important thing there is Program E allows you to have custom tags beyond the AIML set. She's spread across multiple files, and the set that I was using to test had about 10,000 categories. And the difference between her and Chloe was Chloe is AIML only, so there's no custom tags, but her templates are very, very large, and that becomes important when you're looking at a view in either a spreadsheet or a graphical form. Can you see the whole template? That's important here. And of course, she's also split over multiple files and also about 10,000 categories. And then in order to have a larger set, I also downloaded about 33,000 categories worth of the Alice AAA set. And then actually I combined all three and multiplied them a few times because I did create a set that was 250,000 categories just so I had a very large set to see, will this crash these programs? Okay. So the first one I tested was Gato. And one of the reasons why I tested this one first is because on my own journey to finding the perfect editor for me, this was the first one that I had come across because it's free. And so I tried to use this for myself. It's a standalone application. The files are loaded individually into a workspace and managed individually. So this is nice because you load them in once and then you have a workspace that you can come back to. However, that first time, if you have 50 files already, you do have to load them each individually. So the first time is a little painful. But it gets you there. And we'll talk about why some of that is red in a second. Gato has both a graphical and a spreadsheet view. And now if you notice that Gato is split up into multiple windows, so this kind of is a little hard to manipulate if you just say, just want the spreadsheet view, just want the graphical view. There are some pins there to show and hide some of the windows, and I wound up fighting with the program. And when I maximize my program, I would lose a window. So it took a little work to get used to. But one of the nice things about Gato is that there is a test function embedded in there. So you can say something to the bot, and it goes through and finds a response. And not only that, it gives you some information here on how it found the response it did. So which is kind of nice, you can kind of see some of the history. So now let's talk about these errors a little bit. So when loading in each file, it checks for AIML errors. However, it doesn't always recognize tags that are supposed to be known tags. So the date tag would flag as an error. And some tags, like right here, if you claim the pattern tag was an error, the message here says that maybe it's not in the right place. This was part of the Alice AAA set, and that's a good set. So Gato is picking up errors that really aren't errors, which is a little bit of a problem, a little bit of an inconvenience, because it's still, while it will maintain that there are errors there, it still lets you use the file, lets you edit the file, will even let you, test the file. Although what you're seeing here is what I asked is, I said, what time is it? And the response is supposed to be, I've got like a round, and it should be evaluating the date tag here, and it's just blank there because it doesn't recognize that tag. Now this tag recognition problem is also if you are using custom tags like my Lucy bot, they get flagged as errors as well. And one other point about that is, so each time though you load and save the workspace, it asks you for every single file that has an error in it, it asks you again and again, is this okay, is this okay? So it can be a little cumbersome. But if you were doing pure AIML and not using the tag that has errors with it, this will work for some. And then the other problem that I ran into is the test bot didn't always work for reasons that I wasn't able to determine. It seemed to be random. Like I would bring up one instance of the software, put in something, and one time it would evaluate, the next time it would just not evaluate. So I don't have so it just works sometimes. The next one was AI Dealer, which is also a standalone executable. This one will load a set of AIML files. If it's all in one directory, you can just load the whole directory. So I tried it with that 250,000 set, and it took about 20-30 seconds to load, but it was all there. I was still able to manipulate the software just as well with 10 categories as with the 250,000. So that was nice. Now, it does require the haptech player. I was doing all these on a Windows 7 machine, and I had a problem installing the haptech player, which meant that there's a tab here that says Avatar. I wasn't able to use that tab. If I clicked on that tab without the haptech player installed, the program crashes. Now, the primary view here is a spreadsheet view, and it allows you to, you can edit the spreadsheet view, you can add categories here. There's a preview tab, which allows you to look at all this in the text file. And when you add something, it goes right into the text file. So this worked. AIML pad, which is also a standalone executable, but it's also an interpreter. Now, the way this works is kind of interesting. It works on one file at a time. You can bring up one file at a time, and it's a text editor, and it is a text editor. But you can have multiple windows, like you can have Notepad active a whole bunch of times, you can have this active a whole bunch of times. And it has a few tools to manage the content. But one of the nice things about this is the fact that it's an interpreter too. And you can put it into chat mode, there's a little button here, and then load a file, one or more files into a database. Now, it doesn't recognize all the tags. You hear, this is the date tag again. I don't know why folks don't have the date tag evaluate. I don't know why that one is a recurring issue. But what it does do, so if you have custom tags, it ignores them. It'll just pop up just like this. So it won't give you any errors if you have custom tags in there, it just ignores them. But it was pretty neat, and it's actually, if you want an easy standalone way to test something, this actually worked really well. And I'm probably gonna, I didn't know about this before a few weeks ago, because I always thought it was just an interpreter. I'll probably actually start using a little bit of this in concert with what I'm doing. So that brings us to my editor, which is a simple AIML editor. It's also a standalone application, and because it's mine, I've tested it in XP, Vista, and 7. It runs. You can load a bunch of files all at once, and it is primarily a spreadsheet view, sortable by the different columns. And if you double-click on any one of these categories, I mean, you can edit right in the spreadsheet, but it also brings up a little editor for that category. And this was built around the fact that, again, I have long templates. I want to be able to see my whole template. So this little window can stretch, and I can see, well, I got templates that go longer than I could possibly fit on the screen, but I can get as much as possible in there as I can. I also have a comment manager in here. A lot of AIML files will have comments to the front. So if you load files in here, it will load in your comments. You can edit them, and it won't lose them. And one of the other things is because I'm, again, interested very much in custom tags, and I want to make sure if I'm going through thousands and thousands of categories with custom tags, I want to make sure that I neither program them into this piece of software, but I also want to make sure that I can validate my files. So, AIML is a version of, it's an XML, so I've implemented where you've created a schema for your XML. You can load up a schema and then do validation against that schema, which I don't think is something I found in other software, and it's been very helpful to me. Lucy really has several dozen custom tags, and it's very easy to get lost in there. And then the final interesting thing is I have this event, I call it an event window at the bottom, and it keeps track of what you've done to your files. And this is part of, for me, a little bit, it's kind of the beginnings of a configuration control, because I do want to know what I've done in the past. And you can save the contents of this window to a text file, so you can just store it. So if you've made a bunch of changes in one day, you save the changes, and it does, when you save, you can get a backup set of files as well, but then you can save the event window so you know everything that you've done to these files that day. So things like, if you've deleted rows, if you found things, if you've modified categories, it puts everything in there. So there are a couple web-based editors out there, and so these are just two views of two of them. AIML Maker is a new one put together. Now this, though, only allows you to create new files. It doesn't allow you to load in additional files, in other files or existing files. So if you are starting from scratch and just want an easy way to put in patterns and templates and come out with the proper format, this is a nice little tool to do that. And then, of course, the Pandora bots allows you to edit the files as well in a text view. There was another web-based application called Dido, and I was never able to get in contact. It seems to, it was actually very promising. The spreadsheet view is very nice. It was working, I thought it was working pretty well, but it seems to have fizzled out a little bit. It's no longer there. So just in summary, there isn't a perfect app for content management yet. But however, none of them are working perfectly. Different ones fit different needs. However, each one, I think, will find a home for somebody somewhere, based on everyone's needs. I am going to work on this generic requirement set that I want to put out there for folks to use and poke holes at. And then, based on everything I've learned, and also based on my current needs for my own editing purposes, I am working on an update to my simple editor. So, sometime later this summer. I have everything that had a web address in my presentation is here too. Any questions?
Okay, so it is our break time now, and we'll take a 15-minute break and reconvene at 3:15.